Everybody, welcome to the LOFT Project and a very special podcast for you, a Flat Earth special, something I've wanted to do for a long time. We've got three very special guests, one in the studio, our resident co-host, Danny Giannoni.
Good evening.
How you doing, my friend?
Good, I'm very well. How are you?
Brilliant, thank you. We've got Roberto Reeves, I believe you're over in air.
Stranraer, mate.
Oh,
Right in
Do you
the
want to
bottom southwest corner. But
just put your full
doing,
address in the
folks?
postcode in the description below?
Welcome, Roberto. And we've got Kevin Cuss over in the States. How are you doing, my brother?
Hey guys, how you doing, everybody? Welcome to be here.
Thank you. Thanks for being on. So yeah, this is something I've wanted to do for a long time. Obviously, the podcast is a bit of a passion of mine, and the Flat Earth was obviously one of the things I wanted to do for a long time. So I'm very happy to have you all here. So we're going to start, obviously, in fact, how about each and all 3 years telling me, I'll start with you, Danny. Just tell me a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background.
My background, for work, I'm a gas engineer, so gas heating engineer. Discovered the Flat Earth. It was actually one of my friends that introduced it to me about 6 years ago. And obviously, initially, I was quite rude to him about it and told him that he was an idiot and he must be kidding that I was going to believe that. And then after about a month and a half of research, I had to apologise to him because I was actually a bit of a NASA fanboy. Anything on Discovery Channel and whatnot, anything space related was basically, as far as I was concerned, if they said it, it was true. So I'm like the classic case. From NASA fanboy to, where I am now. So
cool. Okay, Roberto, how about you? Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what was the first thing that kind of brought you to the Flat Earth?
my background, I was a psychiatric nurse for 20 years. I've been a postman for the past 6. What kind of brought me to Flat Earth? It was one of my good friends, Robert Tobin. I was at his house one day and he just says to me, he says, I've been looking into Flat Earth. And I'm like, you've been looking into what? And it was like, I don't know, I didn't have the kind of instant kind of things falling off the edge reaction, but I was like, he's a sensible guy, so I thought, well, if he's been looking into it, then there must be something to it, so I'll go and kind of have a look and check it out myself. And I came home, watched, I went on to YouTube, and that's when if you searched, you could still find kind of half-decent videos. Everything's just propaganda now when you search Flat Earth on YouTube. But one of the first videos that came up was ODD 21 questions, and I was kind of 10 minutes into it, and I was like, how the fuck did I not see this before? I just went straight away. I was like, wow. I thought I was cleverer than that. But then it's just a kind of, I've not looked back. It's been a kind of natural progression for there, and kind of try to establish kind of the shape of the room we're in, and kind of where we are and what's the purpose and what it's all about. But I don't like the term Flat Earth. I mean, I think it's kind of loaded with stereotypes and kind of conjures up images and kind of ideas in people's heads. So I don't make any claims to kind of what the Earth is, but I can certainly say that it's not in terms of the cartoon that we're showing on TV. But
very true. Same question to you, Kevin. A little bit about yourself, your background, and what was the first thing that brought you to the Flat Earth?
Yeah, I very similar story to everybody else. I had quite a very little past, and my own personal life, little jack all trades thing going on, but big in science and math. And I just happened to hear somebody say the Earth was flat, and I just laughed, and I wouldn't even bother looking at it. And I don't know. I think I had a UFO experience. We had a UFO fly in the yard one day, and it caused me to do some research online. And YouTube started sending me flat Earth stuff, so I took a look. And I think Mark Sargent was who I saw first, and then I saw Eric Dubé's 200 proofs, and then from there I was off and running. I had to test it. So
I don't know. None of you guys mentioned what year it was for you. What year? How long ago was it for you, Danny? Or
I think 6 years roughly. 6 years, something like that. 2015.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I think for me personally, it's 2016, 2017.
Oh yeah, so I win then. Right, so I'm first.
How about you, Roberto?
I think it was about 2014, 15, thereabouts.
And you?
At the same time.
Yeah, 2015 here too.
2015. I think for me, I think it was Eric Dubé. I think it was 200 proofs that we don't live like the Earth is. We don't live in a ball. Whatever. What was it? What's the correct title for it again? 200 proofs.
Can't remember.
Yeah, I think it's 200 proofs you don't live on a spinning ball.
Yeah, and I think I could just remember I was in the kitchen with my father at the time. I was just like, there's no way in 2016 people believe that they live on a flat Earth. It was just like the same. It's funny because when you have those conversations over the years with the same people,
there's no way.
Yeah, there's no way.
There's no way.
Yeah. Like, I rushed to find these people online and just totally kind of like everybody else wanted to debunk them, wanted to battle them. But one thing I think you guys might agree with me that we in the beginning you're defending a model that you don't even know. I realized I didn't even know anything about the heliocentric model, but I was defending it against flat earthers, and but I don't know what it was. I just started looking into it, and then found myself hour upon hour late at night on YouTube. Like Roberto says, before the algorithms were changed, you could actually find real content on YouTube. And
now it's just Vsauce and all that nonsense.
You know yourself. If you were to type that in YouTube flat Earth on YouTube right now, the garbage you would actually.
I know. Well, that's the whole point. That's how it's designed, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, that's your landing point, and most people are going to choose one of the first videos on one of the first pages, aren't they? They're not going to look 200 or 300 pages for answers.
Yeah.
So.
Well, like Roberto says, the term flat Earth it's a straight away it's already got preconceived bias attached to us, right? So they're already imagining.
We'll use the word level. I think that's probably better.
Yeah.
But obviously, flat Earth is identifiable by most people, you know.
But they automatically they envision the flying frisbee in space on the back of a turtle or something.
That's our job to convince them otherwise, or to help them figure it out for themselves. You know, the flying frisbee is just ridiculous. So,
although that is what Auguste Piccard had publicly stated he had viewed when he went up originally back in like 1898.
Yeah.
Well,
when they asked him what he saw, they said it looked like a frisbee with upturned edges.
Yeah.
But
again, that could have been an optical illusion, you know. So.
Well, I wondered if he was controlled opposition himself.
Could be.
You know,
could be.
That's the thing about going down all these rabbit holes. You start to question, like, do I believe anything anymore? It's just. I guess
absolutely.
I guess the question I'm trying to play devil's advocate here and trying to come from a point of say that I'm not a flat earther and asking you guys kind of questions that people hearing it for the first time would say. And I guess one of them would be like, why would governments? Why would they lie about us being where we live and shape of the earth? What benefit would that? I'll put that to you, Danny, first.
What benefit? Yeah. Well, it's the same as asking why anybody lies, really.
Yeah.
You know, they're obviously, that's personal gain, isn't it, for them? So you're trying to divine someone else's thoughts. I mean, why does anybody lie? Well, that's the kind of, you know, it's a non-question, isn't it? It's like we don't really care why they're doing it. I want to know, you know, the truth. I'm not really interested in why they're telling the lie. You know what I mean?
Same to you, Roberto. What do you think? What I would say.
I can a standard response to that question, and it's, well, you must be the type of person that walks into a murder scene and immediately abandon the investigation because you can't establish a motive. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's like, why would they lie? Why are you concentrating on that and withdrawing your attention for the physical, measurable object that we're discussing the shape of? I mean, it's
perfect.
It's just it's a complete logical fallacy, and like I try not to get involved in discussions like that because you just end up going around in circles for ages.
Let's ignore the dead body in the room and that's ask but why?
I can't think any reason why somebody would kill that person. So it's ridiculous.
Same thing at you, Kevin. What, if somebody was to ask you that question, what would your response be to them?
You know, it's a funny thing. You know, why would somebody lie? I think that a lot of people want to think the government tells you the truth, and they're not being lied to about the government or about things by the government. Yeah. But I think everybody knows at the heart of the answer, nobody's trusting the government, and everybody knows they're being lied to about hosts of things. So why wouldn't they lie? You know, there's.
think it's kind of train
What
of
do you
thought.
think you're being told the truth about?
Yeah, it's a train of thought where I believe them about, or don't believe them about so many other things, but with this, they're definitely telling the
Well, I
truth.
think the question would be, has the government ever told a lie before, and has that been proven to be the case?
Yes.
And I think we'd say yes. So at what point did they
Undoubtedly.
stop lying? You
Yeah.
know, like, so, you know, do they tell any truth? Maybe. I'm pretty sure they mix in some truth, you know, just to keep people under the illusion that media and government are there to serve them, but they're not, are they? So
No, definitely not.
There is an answer to the question. I mean, in my opinion, it's a psychological prison without walls. It gives people the illusion that everything's been discovered everywhere in the globe. It's been mapped out. Everybody's been there. It's so you then add in space, and you've got the problem. Well, nobody can leave. But you've got restricted areas, and it hasn't all been discovered, and it hasn't all been explored independently. I mean, there's restricted areas in the north. There's a whole continent that's restricted in the south. We don't have a magnetic south pole. But if people think that there's nowhere else to go, then they'll accept that, and they'll kind of move on with the fabricated construct life that's provided to them. And then if you look at human nature or any kind of animal instinct, if you were to wake up in a warehouse and you had no recollection of how you got there, the first thing you've got to do is search out the dimensions or the containment that you're in and try and get out of it. So if you look at Admiral Byrd's kind of mission and his interview on the TV, if people thought that there was more land over there, they'd be over banging in the walls saying, well, this place is fucked, we want to see what's over there. So it serves as a kind of psychological containment, but nobody tries to leave because they think there is nowhere to go. When there is, I'm not saying there is more land, it could be containment, there could be more land, it could be infinite, it could be, fuck knows, you never got to establish that until they're allowed to go there independently. But to me, it removes that process from the kind of human instinct, so everybody's compliant, and it's like the bird that's never been out of a cage. It looks at birds flying and thinks they're mentally ill. But I mean, to me, that would be probably the answer to the question. It's just a control mechanism.
A bit like the Truman Show, that, you know, we always see in movies they kind of show certain truths in movies about, you know,
well, that's more of a physical containment, isn't it?
Aye.
So this is more kind of like what I would liken to the Bible, you know, like a control mechanism. You know, it's an invisible cage, you know.
You know, to add into what Roberto was saying along the psychological aspect of the why is, who cares about the why if you don't have that what figured out? You can have a known murder on video and know the what and never know the why. But you're never going to understand the what if you can't understand that there is a what, let alone the why. So I think first of all, we really should just, like he said, just establish this realm we're in before we start worrying about the who's hiding what and whys.
I think that
also, though, if we're measuring with faulty measuring equipment, I think that we're never going to get a good answer either, though. So, you know, if we're using the governmental tools to measure things, maybe we got to come up with a better system too.
It feeds into all the other control mechanisms as well, because they give you the kind of limited resources in terms of fossil fuels, and that we're overpopulated. I mean, even though that's a myth, given the size of the area that we know of. But if you're on the globe, it allows them to feed this climate change, and it's like, just populate it, like other fucking nonsense control shite they chuck at people.
100%.
So a lot of people are thinking the knee-jerk reaction when you do actually even mention the flat Earth, they always, instead of kind of talking about the shape of the dimensions of the ground beneath their feet, they always, and I think I did this myself, always look up to the sky. And you know, you guys know yourself, they'll always say, we're flat, how come all the planets are round, all the stars are round, everything in the sky is round and we're flat? Daddy.
Yeah, well, it's obviously completely faulty logic, isn't it?
Circular reasoning, right?
It's like, what colour is your house? Well, I looked at my neighbour's house, it's yellow, so my house must be yellow. Or, you know, you can make 1,000 different examples.
The disco ball is round, but so the
faulty logic. You know, you're basically presupposing that you're standing on a sphere, and everything that you can see in the sky is a sphere, you know, of similar dimension or whatever. So it's just the most bizarre. But I mean, that's how people have been programmed to think.
Yeah.
But because you're programmed to think like that from a very young age, they hand
From
you
birth.
a plastic toy and they say,
Yeah.
"This is where you live," okay?
Yeah.
And then as soon as you question it, they'll say, "Oh, don't be ridiculous. You don't fall off the bottom because of gravity. What's gravity? Oh, it's a force that keeps you on. It pulls you towards the center of the plastic ball that you're holding."
Yeah, even when we're babies, before we can even have cognitive thought, we've got mobiles above our crib with planets and
Start
stars
as young
on.
as possible.
And
The first images that you see.
yeah, and they hand you this globe and tell you that's where you live. I remember having one in my bedroom for many years as a kid, without even kind of thinking about it. Just it's all about trust. We have adults and teachers and people and scientists and people in authority who are kind of teaching us things, indoctrinate. We don't know it's indoctrination at the time, but
Well, these people are already in a position of authority, and we trust them to teach our children about the world. So that's why we hand children over to the government and in their schools, their training camps. So to educate them, educate in inverted commas.
yeah.
But I don't know what the other guys think about that.
I was actually kind of quite scared, like obviously kind of working in psychiatry, kind of psychology background, the amount of faith that was actually involved, and until because I didn't really know that much about the heliocentric model. I mean, I wasn't really a kind of space person. I was never really interested in it. I had the career and kind of like my attention was focused kind of more on that than kind of things like space and cartoons. But when you start to actually examine it, and I mean, it fell apart instantly for me. I mean, when you look at the dates and the claims that they're making, I mean, the kind of general consensus is, oh, we've had it all figured out for 2,000 years, how the whole universe works, the distances, how big the planets are, blah, blah, blah. But they never left Earth, allegedly, until 1969. So that's, 52 years ago.
Yep.
So all these claims are based on looking at the stuff in the sky. They've got no means of quantifying it. Yeah. And I'll put it to people, get outside, look at the house at the end of your street and tell me the exact distance to it, the exact measurements and every component used in its construction. And with that a physical measurement, you get, your eyes are probably one of the easiest deceived of your senses.
Yeah.
But yet, we've just accepted that the Greeks had managed to figure this out just by looking at it with fucking sticks and shadows 2,000 years ago. It's an absurdity when you actually break it down and look at what they've got away with for years. It's crazy.
It really is, though. We take it on blind faith what we're taught, and we just never. I know that I certainly never questioned it until 2016, and then you quickly realise that you actually don't even know the heliocentric model that you're defending. I know I certainly didn't. I mean, did you, Danny?
I don't know. Put it to Kevin. I've been yapping along for ages.
No, feel free. Yeah, I mean, I was an astronomy nut as a kid. I was a NASA fanboy, and I had every fact and figure memorized. I was watching everything.
Same.
Right up until Felix Baumgartner's jump, and I sat there with my telephone in front of their TV recording to make sure I had that moment forever. And then shortly thereafter, I caught on.
Space jump. The whole of Texas was like half of the planet.
Analyzed frame by frame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't expect people to do that, do they? They just a quick image, 10, 15 seconds. The attention span nowadays is quite short. They can just flash you something. A headline is all that's required, and then that's it. Nobody really reads the actual full article, do they? With anything, it's just a quick.
Well, another thing too is I think we're also getting critical eyes now, because I've gone back and looked at old footage that I watched with my old eyes. I didn't see anything that I'm seeing now. So many things are so obvious and blatant that I was never noticing it before. For that, I feel a little foolish.
It's embarrassing, I would say. I
don't know about you guys, but it was actually after seeing the 200 proof, I went back to, it was actually my breakthrough was looking into NASA, into the moon landings and the International Fake Station. And
well, I mean, if you want to watch somebody who laughs at you when you talk about the moon landing being fake, you just have to say, well, you tell me how that buggy fits inside that lander, and then we'll talk. You know, and it's like, it's just ridiculous.
In 1969, they had no idea that the internet was going to be a thing. They had no idea we were going to be able to kind of even look at this footage in a certain way.
But they lost it all anyway, didn't they?
And they lost it. But if you go back and you look at it right now, I think we can all agree that it's so bad. It's so obviously on a film stage.
It was good for the time. Thank you, Stanley. It was good for the time.
I just ask everybody if the moon's a sausage, because you've got that picture where you've got the horizon of the moon behind him, and then you've got the horizon of the moon reflecting in his visor. So the moon's a bit
if the moon's a sausage. Brilliant.
But it's so obvious to me. Look how bad it is. It's just, you know, we look at technology and look at the supercomputers we've got as phones right now, and they want you to believe that with the kind of power of a Casio calculator, they went to the moon 6 times.
But we spoke about this before, didn't we? We said that they've already got us arguing about this place called space that we can actually come right back from that and go, hold on a minute, you know, space is actually impossible.
Yeah.
And then we can maybe talk about why they've got us arguing on the moon, whereas we should be arguing back on ground and say, hold on a minute, before we go to the moon and look at the moon sausage and all the lander and everything, let's talk about space actually even being a thing, you know? And that's going to sound... Sorry, on you go, guys.
I was saying, but you'd heard... apologies. Werner von Braun had put out there was some clip of him years ago on YouTube, and I can't find it anymore, but they had an interview with him on like a CBS News special, asking him about this new prospectus of going to the moon, and he said, listen, you really can't do it. It's physically impossible. We would need to have a shuttle the size of the Empire State Building just for the fuel load you'd need, but it would just crush under its own weight. But even if it worked the first time, which it never does, because you'll probably need 3 or 4 of them, when you get there, you're going to need 3 of them set up, ready to go when you get there to fly back with. How are you going to work that part out? And that was the end of the interview. Yeah. It's gone. A year later, Kennedy got in his ear, and then we're going to the moon.
I think
amazing how that works. It
is. I think a lot of people, I know I certainly didn't know anything about Operation Paperclip, where obviously the Americans brought over many of the Nazi rocket scientists who were making. I think they were making the V2 rockets that were hitting London and the concentration camps. And that they brought.
Yeah.
over.
So actually, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Werner von Braun still holds the Guinness Book of longest record flight to date, and it was a German V2 rocket from Germany to London. It's still the longest record. It's in the books.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Wouldn't the Apollo missions beat that?
Yeah, yeah, you would. That would be true. That would be true.
Right.
So we stated that he
weren't there at the time. They were busy that day.
So he was a head Nazi at the time, one of the head rocket scientists in the Third Reich, right?
Oh, I mean, it doesn't really. That's kind of like ad hominem, isn't it? That's like sort of attacking the man. Like, let's focus on the science.
But he was the head of NASA. They created NASA, and then he was the head of NASA for all 6 moon missions, right?
Not exactly. So he was pulled over from Peenemünde, a German rocket farm over there. He was under the SS in the Nazi program, but he wasn't really a Nazi official. He was a rocket guy. He was a rocket, physics guy. But when he came here, he was tapped to be a part of NASA, but he wasn't actually ever the director of all of NASA. He was like the director of the rocket program. And he only did that for a few years before they were actually NASA, I think. I believe once they actually officially formed as NASA, he was already kind of in a consultation role outside the organization.
Oh, right.
Probably because of his background and stuff becoming then, you can get the Freedom for Information request. You can get all the records on government employees now. Everybody would find out.
Yeah.
Would be my guess.
So what was the actual, correct me if I'm wrong, but what was the links between Disney and NASA, Von Braun and kind of Kubrick? You guys know?
Well, they were all pulled in under the War Department during the war and classified operations. So Walt Disney's, all his movie studios were shut down, and he did all war propaganda, making war films and the whole loose lips sink ships propaganda video stuff. I think he was also a Mason, but I don't know. I'm not part of that. But he was tight with the government. He was, a wealthy guy, and he was doing favors for wealthy senators and people in power, as was those working in Operation Paperclip. I think they're all just part of a rich, controlling members club.
Yeah.
Probably involved in faking a lot of the footage and the propaganda that was shown in the TV to convince people that NASA and the space program was real in the first place.
Yeah,
sure. It strikes me odd that the rocket program and Walt Disney's program are only separated by about a 30-mile drive.
Mm.
You got the whole country to do either, and you slam them both right there in the middle of Florida.
yeah.
I think they would have probably been better. They would have convinced more people if they'd actually gone down the route of not broadcasting it on TV and just going with the radio only, because they convinced plenty of people just by radio broadcasts that it was happening, didn't they? Because a lot of people didn't have a TV.
I think the original broadcast, they put it onto a projector, so and then all the TV stations kind of record it from that projector. I don't think there was any.
I wouldn't know, but
I'm not too sure about that. But the thing that I always found funny, that Nixon was talking to them on the moon through a landline.
I know.
Less delay than there is to the International Fake Station these days.
Well, that's another thing. Surely that would be considered like one of the. Surely that would be considered one of the greatest achievements of mankind, would be to build a station in space. And if you look anywhere, you cannot find any footage of them building it.
No.
It doesn't exist.
There isn't any footage.
I mean, it's one of the most. I mean, I would say that would be a pretty amazing feat of engineering.
Yeah.
You know, you cannot get. I mean, they should be endless videos of that
really, because
being built.
To me,
you know,
we laugh about this because I feel like it's the most badly designed craft you've ever seen.
The wiring spaghetti, that's my favourite.
I mean, any Sparky would see the wiring inside of that spaceship and think, wow, it's health and safety gone mad.
Yep.
And also,
you'd think they'd have a team of machinists working around the clock up there.
Also,
and they wouldn't I would be spraying water around all over the place.
Yeah. So
sensitive, life-saving equipment, electronic equipment. I will just throw some water in to make sure everybody knows that we're floating in zero gravity.
And every time there was something needed to be fixed, it was like, it requires a spacewalk. It's the most badly it's like the guys in a submarine at like the lowest depth of the sea, having to go outside to fix the submarine.
So we've gone from flat Earth into space now. We're arguing about space.
I know. We're not even arguing. It's just funny. To me, the whole NASA thing.
The only other thing that's more bizarre of the lack of footage of the space station being built is the lack of footage of an astronaut with a head cam recording the whole process through launch, leaving the atmosphere, docking with the space station, boarding through the airlock. I mean, mankind's second greatest achievement, but there's no visual record of it. I mean, people record everything these days, so why is there no footage uncut of the whole process, like leaving Earth, docking with the thing?
Even with SpaceX, and you get like Atari Vision, like some of the worst video footage that switches to really bad graphics and flicks back to some obscure camera angle that shows you nothing, and you're just like, and then you get a cartoon, and then and a commentator and people cheering. It's just all fanfare, isn't it?
You know what the best one?
If you actually honestly sit and watch it, it's embarrassing. It's pathetic. You know.
Do you know one of the funniest memes that I've seen throughout the whole thing was like they're showing you a picture of a black hole 50 billion trillion zillion light years away, but then there's somebody in a bank and his face is all blurry.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's clearly enough. It's clearly enough of a story. As I say, we were talking about this the other day. They don't really have to put any effort in anymore because people are so easily deceived because they just believe that someone else has thought about it. I don't need to worry about that. I'm so busy with life and bills and everything else that somebody else is worrying about that kind of stuff, you know. So I don't need to concern myself with it.
The system's made so we don't even look up or question anything like that. If it comes from authority, then we just totally believe it, right?
Yep.
NASA get $50 million a day or dollars a day, whatever it is, and they bring us CGI cartoons. We've got obviously the moon landings, which are just like International Fake Station, which every part of that just makes no sense at all. And then for me, the whole helicopter and robots on Mars. I mean, I can't get a signal in my bedroom, but they've got like super like space Wi-Fi where they can remote control fly this spaceship to this rock, this light in the sky, and land on it. And Johnny Five is a live robot just flying about, and now a helicopter.
Have you seen the story behind the guy that controls that? He's apparently controlling it for a laptop and a flat above a hairdresser's and fucking or something.
Yeah, I saw that.
No, I didn't see
That's
it.
brilliant.
Not NASA.
Legit.
You should see him. He's
Some Indian
hilarious
scientist that's sitting in a flat above a hairdresser's and
in London.
raising or somewhere.
I mean,
He's controlling it.
but didn't they tell us that? Again, I don't know how they know this, but the atmosphere on Mars is like what it's like such a fraction of Earth's
or something.
But we know on Earth,
Yeah.
like say these people who go skiing, they have accidents at the top of the mountain or whatever. The helicopters can't go up there
Yeah,
because
but these are special Mars helicopters. They've got 10 times the lifting thrust, so you're just missing the point here, James. It's
know.
technology. It's
I know.
NASA.
As for NASA's technology, I had a recent engineering professor in a flat Earth debate with me, and he brought up NASA's super high-end zoom camera on the outside of the ISS. So I went and showed him what it was, and it's a $1,000 Best Buy camera off the shelf. So now where's my high-end zoom picture, buddy?
Who's that Canadian? Who's the Canadian astronaut who's on the International Space? Is he Canadian or is he American? Is it Chris Haddon? Oh, what's his name? Chris?
Somebody? I don't take any interest in them, to be honest. It's just,
he's always got a guitar playing tunes.
Yeah.
The Chris Haddon? I forgot his name.
He's the guy that sung live with the Bare Naked Ladies with no a single bit of delay.
Yeah, that's him. That's him. No, you watch any other kind of footage, any other interviews from the space station, there's like a 15-second delay. Even though the guys, you can see one guy's reacting to the crowd, what they're saying, but then 15 seconds later, he's like, he was singing like no delay at all. Wasn't it him? There was a hole. Wasn't there a hole in the space station? And he plugged it with his finger or something.
That's right. I did a full meme catalogue about that. You may remember it, Bob.
I know.
Cover for a 90s band. The picture that NASA put up, it was some
album cover,
American rock band had used it as an album cover in 1992.
Yeah.
So it's just recycled stock photos, but people buy into it.
See, Roberto, when they do stuff like that, though, they're not even trying to hide it. They're almost just laughing at, they're mocking us with stuff like that, because they must know that if they're going to use that image, someone on the internet's going to find it. So they just at that stage they're just laughing, right?
They have to be.
I think they set a lot of stuff up as well, like hoping that people like us will bite and post it, and then they'll ridicule it by posting like the real thing like a day later.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of kind of propaganda and kind of disingenuous for people out there that claim to be flat earthers, but they're running about spouting nonsense, just trying to make the rest of us look silly.
The waters.
Mm-hmm.
I think that people want to enjoy that NASA show so much that they don't care. They don't want to know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think NASA's well aware that they can do this like children at best at this point, because as long as they only fool half of the crowd, that half will silence the other half. Nobody cares what the quieter half's got to say.
Yeah.
You know, it's so blatant at this point that it's laughable. Buzz Aldrin come out on national TV and told a little girl that the reason we didn't go back because we didn't go the first place. It's on national TV, and the professor just told me that was just for the show. What else do you got to hear from the horse's mouth?
I mean, obviously, Armstrong came back and he was just a total recluse afterwards. He didn't really even actually give many interviews, did he? If you look at the footage, if you actually look at the footage when they were actually leaving, they're all happy and smiles. But we've all seen the press conference when they came back, and the body language of all three of them. They've just done, the most incredible thing known to man, and they're all looking down at the floor, and the body language is just all wrong. But Buzz,
I
don't even know does anyone even remember the name of the other guy? Was it Collins or something? Was it Collins?
Michael Collins.
Michael Collins.
Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong.
Yeah, but nobody actually remembers him, I don't think.
What was the cameraman called?
The cameraman who was already on the moon.
He's still up there.
We left him. Well, do you guys remember that footage when we see the little blast off and the lander takes off and goes up and the camera pans up?
Yeah.
There was no panning cameras back then. You had to have a guy work the camera. My question is, how'd you get the footage back? Did you go back and get it?
There's a few holes.
Did you leave
in
Steve
the
and he
story
wired it to you?
Yeah, there's definitely a few holes in their story.
It's just laughable. Like I say, it's the same thing with SpaceX, and now
we could probably have a full moon episode, couldn't we?
Yeah,
sure.
Definitely. I mean, I think we should move away from the space.
Stick back to flat.
Yeah. But before we do, I just think the Tesla, the car in space was the most laughable thing of all. It looks so fake. It must be real. Like What a quote.
They almost broke the fourth wall rule.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Took the mirror off.
Yeah. It's funny you're going to mention that. I was always going to mention that. It was like the fourth wall. You always seen it from in the station on the moon. It's always from that. You never see the fourth wall there, like on the kind of sets of Friends or something. It's always from that one view.
Yeah, but again, it comes back to it not really mattering what they do.
Yeah,
it's enough, isn't it? Just to keep the story going.
Yeah,
you know.
Coming back to the Earth, we're going to talk about like what's the main proofs for you guys that you don't live on a spinning space ball. I'll start with you, Danny.
Well,
just for people who like
so many, I'll just pick one. Obviously, this is quite an in-depth one, but I do like the fact that if we're basically, we've been provided, so we're not making any claims about what the Earth is. Okay, we're basically anti-globers, if you like. Basically, we've been
skeptics.
Yeah, globe skeptics. So we've been handed a geometric sphere, and we've been given specific dimensions of the circumference, which obviously we can basically deduce, the radius and whatnot of the sphere. So that's the claim is the globe, and when we start to dig into the geometry of it, for example, if you're at a 1 foot observer height and you look out to sea, the horizon should appear at 1.22 miles, from your position. That's as far as you can see before, obviously, the geometry of the sphere dips away. Okay, but if you can see beyond that, which we have done, we've seen way beyond that, it completely dismantles the geometry of the sphere. It falls apart.
Yeah.
So either they've lied about the size of it, or it's not spherical. So
you basically say no observable or measurable curvature at all.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying I'm saying as far as we can see, we're seeing far beyond the edge. The horizon is not a physical place. It's an optical illusion.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's where the sky and the earth meet. Okay, but their claim is that at the horizon is the edge of the sphere. So
physical,
it's a physical place. You're like, well, take me to the horizon then. You can't.
Yeah.
It's an optical illusion.
Yeah.
It's where the sky and the ground converge. Okay, so as I said, if we are seeing way beyond the calculation of their geometry that they have given us, then their geometry is broken and their sphere doesn't work.
Yeah.
If you can see 10 times that, then you can imagine the size the Earth would have to be. So what did they've given us the circumference, or they've given us the distance around the equator. So as far as I'm concerned, that's one out of 1,000 different proofs that will completely destroy that model that they've handed us.
Same question to you, Kevin. What could be your kind of, if you were speaking to somebody for the first time trying to explain the flat Earth, what would be your number one proof that you don't live on a physics-defying supersonic molten space ball?
The one I like to use the most probably isn't the best to use with everybody, but it's Polaris and the stars we're seeing.
Yeah, North Star, yeah.
The North Star, over 6 months, it should just disappear and then reappear again at the 1 year point. The fact that it stays in the same position night after night, year after year, the heliocentric model can't account for that in any way.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah.
And even the stars and the constellations that we're seeing in the sky, when we go around from January to June, we should be looking at a completely different side of the universe at night.
Yeah.
So we should just see completely different stars. So as our nights progress through the year, we should see the stars just slowly go by, new ones come up until you make a full lap, and then you got your original picture back. And you just keep making laps. It's like going around the outside of the outside walls of a gym, watching all the posters. As you come back to the start point, you see the first poster again.
Well,
to see the same poster, no matter where you go around, even though there's all different posters everywhere, something's wrong.
Yeah.
Could I just interject to that point as well, Kevin? The same logic applied to the sphere. Obviously, we've got the 24-hour rotation of the sphere, but we've also got the 12-month rotation around the sun. We would drift between day and night every 6 months. So night and day would swap, because the other side of the globe is facing away from the sun, and then it's facing towards it. So every 6 months you would drift in and out, night and day, and it would completely swap round. But it doesn't do that. You know, I've had
Correct.
rebuttals to that saying people will come back and Google something and they say, oh, it's because a day is not quite a day, and it's like that's you know what I mean? It's like you're the guys who are defining the calendar and the daily cycle, and I'm telling you it's broken, and you come back and tell me that a day is not quite a day. You know, it's ludicrous. You know.
Well, and I think that they're just kind of repeating and parroting what we're all getting from the powers that be when you ask, like, why do we have a leap year once every, and it's that whole sidereal day versus celestial day versus Earth day, and we got to add a little, tweak a little, you know, everything with our time here is tweaked. Nothing is left alone with time here. It's tweaked everywhere in every way imaginable, from days to months to hours.
Yeah, and I think that's probably why our seasons drift as well. It's the way that we what they're calling climate change is actually just a much longer, larger cycle that's playing out, and it drifts in and out, you know. But we're trying to apply this calendar, which doesn't work basically, and that's why it seems like it's completely haywire at the moment when it's actually just a natural cycle.
Yeah, same question to you, Roberto. What kind of like we've said to the other guys, if you were talking to somebody for the first time trying to explain the flat Earth, what would be your number one proof that you don't live on a spinning ball? Yes.
I kind of approached it for a kind of reverse engineer kind of point of view. I didn't try to prove the Earth was flat. I tried to prove that I lived on a globe. Sort of looked at standard of proof. And if you break down kind of how you get to empirical, it's like, I don't need language or maths or numbers. It's like if I met a French or a Spanish guy and I wasn't fluent in their language, we didn't have any kind of visual means of communicating, I would be able to demonstrate to them that fire burns without the need for language or maths, or I could demonstrate to them that water's wet without the need for language or maths. So I looked at it from a point, well, what could I do to show somebody else that I live on a globe? And I kind of very quickly realised that I can't. And the more I tried to prove it, the more I found that it was the exact contrary that I was finding everywhere I looked. For me, I think kind of living next to the sea, the kind of the fluid mechanics of water and how you observe the horizon, that was probably the biggest one.
Yeah.
I can see loads of stuff even without my camera on a good day that I shouldn't be able to see on a globe. Yeah. There's a lighthouse kind of called Crossbow Point. It's about 6 miles outside Stranraer. From there on a clear day, you can see the Ailsa Craig, Isle of Arran, Mull of Kintyre, Ireland. Some days you can see right down to the Isle of Man. You're talking like almost 85 miles away, I think it is. So when you plug in the numbers for the globe, like Danny was saying, and you're seeing a lot further than I should be able to. Yeah. But then you've got the kind of dilemma that everywhere you look on the horizon, that you can put a spirit level up to it, and it doesn't deviate at all. Yeah. And if you look at some of the distances that I'm viewing, you might be looking at 80 to 100 miles of horizon, and there's no distortion. But on a globe, if you put in the numbers, you should be looking at clearly observable curvature. One thing the human eye is good at is discerning level. It's like if I hang a picture and it's just like a millimetre off, like she'll notice it and say, look, that's squint. So we're good at discerning kind of what level is and what deviations from level are. I think kind of listening to what other people were saying as well, that the sun seems to be kind of one of the biggest proofs to folk that they live on a globe. How do sunrises work? How do sunsets work? Yeah. And when I looked at kind of how daylight and night was supposed to work and what the claim was for the globe, they say that the Earth spins over 1,000 miles an hour at the equator, and because of Earth spinning, you get a termination line where the sunlight doesn't reach the part of the Earth that's spinning away from the sun. So if you take the rotation speed at the equator, that means that the terminator line needs to be moving at over 1,000 miles an hour at the equator. So if you're in Africa, day and night should be like flicking a switch between night and but that's not what we observe in reality. Everybody can see that the sun moves away, the light bleeds. It's not a quick instant thing. It's a progressive kind of. So the claims of it are just ridiculous. There's a kind of mental exercise I get people to do with the sun. And if you go outside in the morning and look where the sun rises and make a point, a physical point on land, then say 12 hours later when the sun's going down, again, make a physical point on land where you see it leaving your perspective or your vision. And then if you go to Google Maps and put in the 2 points, you'll find it's only about 10, 12 miles distance from where you see the sun rise, and it takes 12 hours to get to the other side of your vision and set. So to me, that just shows that people don't understand how their spherical eyes work.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people neglect that their eyes are balls.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what they did was they kind of did a switcheroo. I mean, Gav did a really good video where if you're looking at a spherical world with planar vision, or if you're looking at with planar vision at a spherical world, they would both look the same. So what we're actually looking at is a planar world, planar geometry. We use planar principles in every aspect of life with spherical eyes, but they've convinced people that they're looking at a spherical world with planar vision.
Yeah.
So they kind of mess with people's heads and kind of distorted their thinking and how we view the world and sort of how our eyes work. But if you delve into it, I mean, 95% of people's proof of living on the globe is optical phenomenon.
Yeah.
It's like ships disappearing over horizons or stuff up in the sky millions of miles away, or they don't have any physical, tangible proof. Yeah. I mean, it's like, can you show me water bending? No. Can you show me gravity that I can't explain away with density, buoyancy, and mass? I mean, none of the claims have got any physicality to them, and people forget we're talking about a big physical object. It's supposed to be a great big spherical ball, so it's kind of try to keep people keep their feet in the ground when they're talking about it.
A big ball they don't teach us about in school, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
When I learned about flat Earth and I tried to learn about, proving out it was a round Earth, I realized I knew nothing. I had to go learn all this for myself.
Yeah.
Yep.
I knew nothing.
And people try to argue it. They don't know what they're talking about even.
Yeah. That's so true, Kevin, because I know from talking to all you guys that I knew, like, before looking into flat Earth, I knew nothing about the heliocentric model.
Well, the way that people answer you when you mention flat Earth is like they're a globe professional.
Yeah.
And you're like, all right, interesting. What's the radius of the Earth? And just watch the blood drain from their face. They have not got a clue. But seconds ago, when they were ridiculing you, they were a globe professional, and it's like, oh, that's interesting. Right. I know more about your model than you know about it. Yeah. So don't condescend.
I think that's the thing that most globe proponents forget, that we weren't born flat earthers.
We're in some sort of cult. It's like, I'm just trying to show you what I've learned.
Yeah.
I'm not in a cult. I've not had a mental breakdown.
Yeah.
I'm not on any medication. I'm just trying to show you what I've seen, and you will not see it. That was something I wanted to ask you guys. What was your experience of kind of when you first? I mean, me personally, I think Roberto was one of the first people I came across. Yeah, he's a bit of a celebrity, as Roberto.
And before I even really had the knowledge of what I was talking about or how to even explain it, I was already sharing it. I saw it.
I think that's the mistake I made.
It was a big mistake. It was a big mistake
that I got absolutely destroyed in every argument. And I just turned people off to it because I was too impatient. I just didn't learn it properly.
Yeah, I saw it and I just instantly shared it without even having.
And I got destroyed. I got absolutely destroyed. I mixed up centrifugal and centripetal force, and I just get ruined.
I was just like, I just typed. I was just set up for
back
hours.
in my box.
Set up for hours watching YouTube, and it was just like, that was it. Facebook, the Earth is flat, and
it feels like you found the fountain of youth.
Yeah. I don't know about you guys, but my Facebook exploded. I had my old school friends who I'd grown up with, and then I had the people who I was just kind of discovering from the community, and Roberto and all. And I would be like just getting attacked from people who were friends of mine, like 6 of them attacking me at the same time.
Like we've got some sort of sadistic passion or fantasy about getting bullied by every single human on the planet.
Yeah, and these people who I've known my whole life, they were like, we are worried about your mental health, James.
Oh yeah.
And Roberto, to be fair, I called Roberto the Globe Killer because he would just come in and just murder all these people. In fact, I think we've all done it, but I would send Roberto a private message, please come help.
And he came in and white knighted for you.
And he would just come in, he would just murder them them,
slaughter,
just absolutely murder them with knowledge. Yeah.
Brilliant.
But we can all, I think we can all recognize how my friends were reacting, because that's how I certainly reacted in the beginning. So
go on, Kev. Are you going to say something there?
Well, we all just got the same conditioning.
Yes.
You know, we've anything that sounds a little fringe, we're ready to just throw it off.
Yeah, no, I think that's it. But we were just so excited to share it.
Yeah.
It's just I wasn't ready to share it.
In hindsight,
now I'm ready.
Yeah,
but I've turned people off already, and they won't hear it again. Like I had a bit of an argument where I was talking about, I think it was something to do with like standing at the equator, and I would said, you know, I'm sure some aerodynamicists would have some things to say about you standing at the equator and not feeling any wind. And then one of my friends was like, oh yeah, but you stand in a train and you don't feel it. But that's him making a false equivalence between a sealed container moving at a certain rate and then an open system, you know, moving at a certain rate. It's like, so you're trying to say that gas has intermolecular bonds, which it doesn't. You know, it moves independently. Yeah. You know, so just a disaster at the start.
Yeah,
disaster.
In hindsight, I wish I hadn't done that way, but it was just so eager.
Maybe that's why it might have been released that way, so that everybody was so excited about sharing it, they just got fanatical about it and then turned everybody off.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you guys have all had the same experience, but I've genuinely lost friends, many friends of 20 years plus, and family members through talking about flat Earth. I was not prepared. I mean, the most vindictive, horrible, vile things that have ever been said to me have not come from strangers online.
You're attacking their religion, aren't you? That's why
they've come from
they don't
friends
like that.
And family.
You're attacking their religion. So that's what the globe Earth is. Unfortunately, it's a religion.
Yeah.
You know.
Kevin, did you have the same experience? People like just like angrily attacking your character?
No, well, that's why he lives in the woods.
Yeah, so I didn't get that effect like a lot of people did, because I've been so atypical in my life so far that I already had people just ready to leave me alone, just not mess with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've been living a little bit of a crazy life, not a criminal or nothing, but just some atypical living, and I'm a little out there for most people, so. I'm doing some things they're not already comfortable with, so they didn't give a hoot what I was thinking about. But no, I did have some family and friends definitely reach out, want to know what's going on. I had a brother actually come over to ask me to talk to him about it. When I did, he told me that we're never going to speak again. Until this day, we have not.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, we all get that to a degree. I never gave two hoots. I didn't care what people had to say, but again, like Danny had said there, I'm a bearded guy in the woods too, so
and
it ain't helping the cause a whole lot here.
And you have guns.
Right.
Yeah. I'm a bearded guy that doesn't live in the woods, so pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, I'm just a bearded guy. Apparently, to be a flat earther, you have to be a bearded capped guy.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's how you know. You just like you see, you got people in stores now without a mask, and you give them that little wink. So they know.
Yeah.
None of us.
But
well, think of the amount of programming we've gotten between the Waco incident with anybody who lives away from society. We're thought of as they think different and they're dangerous. So we should probably raid them until they all burn to death. We did that live publicly.
Yeah.
Then you got the what was the other one I was going to say? The Ted Kaczynski affair with the bearded guy who went off in the woods and then somehow nobody could catch him as he blew up the whole world for 30 years with all the letter bombs. And then they come out with the movie Conspiracy Theorist, which I thought was just kind of the nail in the coffin. So anyone who lives different, thinks different, or comes up with ideas that are contrary to critical or contrary to common belief, wipe this out of your mind, laugh them off, don't waste a moment. And that's what we all do, myself included.
Yeah.
I have to fight it now.
It's a relentless propaganda campaign, isn't it?
You see, in the early days of us, Roberto, especially you, in the early days of us sharing things, and certainly on the battles that came in on my threads, the things that were said to each other, and there was no censorship. Can you remember the things that were actually the people were saying to each other, calling each other? There was no censorship. There was no banning. There was no anything.
We were free back then.
We were free. It was like honestly, Roberto will tell you yourself. It was like the Wild West, and you look like. Speaking of kind of my personal experience recently, I've just obviously had my Facebook account of 14 years.
Well, mine was disabled for calling somebody a donkey.
What's that?
My Facebook was disabled for calling somebody a donkey. So,
But obviously,
it's got pretty extreme now.
obviously, I'd been in and out of Facebook jail for the last 2 years anyway, discussing COVID anyway, and but they just without warning just completely
Well,
deleted.
you did get warning.
Well, 2 years of warning.
You were living on a knife edge for a long time, sir.
I know, but I was just thinking about the whole flat Earth thing. It's just, you could basically, back in those days, you could say whatever you wanted. And there was no this is the whole censorship, this modern day Nazi book burning that we're seeing right now with this certain narrative. It's just
Every 30-day ban. Every 30-day ban. Neil's been for sharing public health info figures.
I know. Ridiculous. Literally off the government website and he gets censored.
Yeah.
Like, Office for National Statistics. Yeah. It's like, but I mean, even like nowadays they're censoring like Dr. Robert Malone. He did a podcast talking about, because this is the chap that invented the RNA vaccine, and he's actually been he got fact checked by Facebook. When he was talking about something that he's invented, that's amazing.
I mean, I know we're going a bit of a... Sorry.
I came out in a video and it was like, because he was speaking out about the official narrative, it was like 2 days later and he was just completely scrubbed to the internet. Wikipedia, everything gone. And all you could really find was the kind of propaganda pieces, that this guy's lost the place, he's mentally ill, he's kind of just like Dolores Cahill and kind of the other scientists and professors have been attacked that are speaking out about it.
I'd seen... Sorry. Or Roberto?
I mean, it's like you've got Nobel Prize winners. I mean, there's like Montagnier, there's Carl Hennigan, Professor of Evidence-Based Medicine at Oxford University. Dolores Cahill, I mean, she gets labelled an anti-vaxxer, but the woman developed a really successful meningitis B vaccine for Africa, and she used entirely natural adjuvants. It was like mineral oils, and there was nothing at all synthetic in them. Yeah. But yet she's been demonised. I mean, there's arrest warrants out when she's going to speak at protests and stuff. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. I think it's worse than what I've been told about the Nazi book burnings. I mean, it's the level of censorship and how they're attacking these people's unbelievable. There's people getting death threats just because they're being honest and trying to tell the public the truth.
Yeah.
Well, look at Donald Trump. He had all of his social media deplatformed for a January 6th unarmed insurrection. But the Taliban leader right now, who just threw an armed insurrection of Afghanistan, has currently got a Twitter account.
Yeah. If they can censor an actual sitting president.
The thing is, like that with that, we've spoken about that before. I think that's just to feed into the narrative that presidents are actually sometimes quite good. Like they're sort of, when they censor them, it's just to make it look like he might actually have had some power and be telling. Do you know what I mean? It's like it feeds into that. Yeah, no, it's
still part of the system.
Yeah. It doesn't matter if he's doing some good things or not. He's still part of the
system. My thoughts always been you don't get into that position unless you are controlled anyway. So
we're on another tangent.
Yeah, we're on a tangent. But my point was censorship about the flat Earth, the promotion of aliens, and obviously that goes with the whole infinite space vacuum narrative, doesn't it?
Well, why don't we look at the existence of space in the first place? Like, can we talk about that? Have you guys got anything that you'd like to say about that? Like, do you want to go first, Bob?
I think one that covers both of them. You said about the existence of aliens and the existence of outer space. If you look at the etymology of the words extraterrestrial, extra meaning more, additional, and terra derived from terra firma, as in land. So the words extraterrestrial just means more land. If you break it down into to what the word actually means. Yeah. So, I mean, my kind of take on that is it could mean that they're referring to entities from beyond the kind of boundaries that we're aware of.
Yeah.
If you look at Antarctica for the number of kind of people high up in parliaments and sort of religious leaders that go to Antarctica on a regular basis, I was actually quite surprised. You get people like John Kerry and Russian religious leaders and priests, and I mean, there's kind of dignitaries and important people are kind of down in Antarctica fairly frequently. I think it's just a bunch of penguins and a chunk of ice. Why is all these kind of people needing to travel down and frequent the place as often as
On
they
election day, no less.
I heard there's like good ski season down there.
But going back to the, for people who like something we've all heard a million times when they hear where's the edge? Because they're trying to shoehorn the flat Earth into the heliocentric, into this infinite space vacuum where there's a spinning disk of water falling off.
So your universe is infinite, but our plane can't.
Yeah. We always believed there was infinite space, but it's
too much of a stretch of the imagination to think that the plane is infinite.
So I guess for somebody, I don't know what your opinions are, because we all have different ones, but we're told that Antarctica is a huge continent on the bottom of the globe. But what is our interpretation of it? What would you say our interpretation of it is, Danny?
Well, I watched a video of a chap who was actually employed as a plumber, believe it or not, down in Antarctica. And he lived there for 18 months straight without a break. And basically they obviously have their research bases down there, and he does a lot of the plumbing and things there, and he used to go on expeditions and stuff. And his description, he was asked, have you ever seen the 24-hour sun? Because obviously there's a 24-hour sun in the North Pole, so equally there should be one in the South Pole. But he said that it just basically arced over in front of him. It never went behind. And it's actually, if you look for a video of the 24-hour sun, you can't find one. I mean, there's one that's kind of a bit ropey, but there should be, plenty of them. It would only take one time lapse to prove it.
Yeah.
And it's the one that you find is so bad, it's like cloudy and then it gets like chopped together. So I don't think it's a continent at all. But I can't say because I've never been there.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the dimensions of where we are. So, but as far from his account, he said there was no 24-hour sun. He only saw arc in front of him. So to me, that just disproves either the way the Earth moves, or the way the sun transits. Whatever it is that's causing that is impossible to be spherical.
Same question to you, Kevin. What would instead of it being a huge continent on the bottom of a globe, what would be your interpretation of Antarctica?
I have no idea. I don't think that the AE map, the Azimuthal map's exactly correct. I'm not sure that's right.
Yeah.
People are going somewhere. I don't have a clue where they're going.
Yeah.
There's clearly ice there. Like Roberto had said, why all the world's dignitaries are all going down there on key dates. Like for John Kerry, his party's guy was running for president and he disappears on election day down to Antarctica. Mm-hmm. What is drawing everybody down there? Why did Buzz Aldrin get yanked out of there in an emergency flight? There's a lot of mysterious stuff going on. Why aren't we being allowed there? Why are we being given aerial photography apps like Google Earth and such? But when you look at Antarctica, what you're seeing is clearly a blurred out scam job of a map. Yeah. There's something being hidden. I don't know what it is.
So we've got Roberto. So what do you actually know about the Antarctic Treaty?
The same kind of question the guys were on. I don't like to think about it because infinite's a concept that hurts my head.
Yeah.
I think, you've got two options. There's either containment or it goes on beyond our kind of comprehension.
Yeah.
But I think if we look at our lived experience, everything within our kind of lived experience is finite, including us. Everything's got a start, a beginning, and an end.
Yeah.
So the concept of where that goes, if there's a boundary, there needs to be something with that boundary. What's that contained within? It's like the universe is ever expanding. Well, what medium is it expanding into? You cannot get into the Russian doll concept, and it's like, where does that stop? Yeah. In terms of Antarctica, I think it would be really easy to put this to bed. And I've had this conversation with a couple of friends. All you would need was 3 or 4 military-grade long-distance drones. After 5-6 hours of flying, if they don't pop up in South America, Australia, and New Zealand, then you know that it's not a globe. So I think with the area being restricted, and we're never going to get that opportunity. Unless we do it forcefully. You got all these stories of planes being shot out of the sky if they try to go there, but I mean, I think going back to the kind of containment, I think prior to us kind of discovering technology and advancing within this kind of generation anyway, the habitat served as a natural containment. Because if you look at, if you got Mount Everest, you can't breathe, you need breathing equipment because there's not enough oxygen up there.
Yeah.
You go to the kind of outer regions of South Pole, it's too cold, there's no vegetation, there's no indigenous people. So I think because if you look at our bodies and how we function and what we need to sustain ourselves, the environment is probably kind of naturally contains us within the area that we're in anyway. So,
yeah.
And if you look at Bird's missions, it wasn't long after that the Antarctic Treaty was formed. The year after that, NASA was formed. So personally, I think they were down there, they found something, they're like, oh fuck, we need to cover this up. We don't want other people finding this. So
yeah.
But as to what it is, I wouldn't even form a hypothesis. I don't know where to start.
What we physically got, sorry Roberto, but what we physically got is a treaty that's, what year was it signed? You guys know?
47.
58 or 59.
What was it? What's the reasoning behind it? Kind of like
it preserves the area for like kind of scientific exploration, but it says that no country will be able to drill for natural resources, do any kind of scientific experimentation,
and save the animals and stuff. Yeah.
The habitat.
Yeah, so they don't mind doing that. They don't mind doing exploiting habitats and killing off animals and any other part.
The Amazon rainforest supplies like most of the oxygen for the world. But we can destroy that,
but nobody can go to Antarctica.
Ice that infinitely replenishes. You know, we can't damage
because of one penguin.
Oh yeah.
So you've got these companies. Go on, Kev.
It's just, I mean, like, you're going to destroy a whole rainforest full of life, but God forbid there's a penguin only there when you get there. Shut the whole operation down. It doesn't make any sense.
It makes you wonder.
There's no another area of land on Earth that isn't contested or has been fought over for resources and for people claiming ownership of it.
Yeah.
If you look at treaties as well, I mean, the Antarctic Treaty is the only unbroken treaty in the history of treaties.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got countries that are signed up to the Antarctic Treaty that have been bombing the fuck out of each other for much less than what's involved. If you look at what's going on just now as well, I would kind of lean towards it. COVID and the Antarctic Treaty is the only thing that the whole world has ever agreed on in the history or history as I know it anyway.
Which to me makes it scream a higher power, a higher form of control. Because otherwise they should all be fighting over it and each other over everything. But when you get down to this one location, everybody minds their P's and Q's and nobody wants to fight. That sounds like there's a bigger guy with a much bigger gun at the door. Yeah. And everybody's real quiet in his waiting room.
Yeah.
You act like a bunch of heathens everywhere in life. The only time you act right is when dad shows up.
Yeah. I think another one of the arguments I'll hear from globe proponents is that the navigation, they say they've actually travelled.
Well, it's circumnavigated the globe. Yeah, but they've only done it east to west, never north to south. Why is that?
Yeah.
A compass destroys that though, because if you think about it logically, a compass on a globe you would expect it to flip orientation when you went south of the equator.
Yeah.
If there was a North Pole and a South Pole, but we've only got the North Pole. There only is one magnetic pole. I mean, Billy, I've got other friends in Australia that if they stand in Melbourne Beach with a compass in their hand, it'll point north. Doesn't point to the South Pole. So
they'll
be pointing down through their feet as well.
If you think of it logically, the needle needs to be either bending up round the curvature of the Earth to the North Pole, through the kind of molten middle centre. Yeah. But if you think about it even more logically, if he's upside down standing with a compass in his hand, the needle's pointing into space. So, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, there's a good video, Circumnavigation for Dummies. It's only about 2 minutes long, but you've got a kind of flat Earth projection and a magnet in the middle, and the guy goes round it with a compass in a circle, east to west, and because the needle's pointing to the magnetic north or the centre, that it constantly readjusts. So going east or west just takes you in a circle. So, I mean, there's been thousands of east-west circumnavigations and never one north-south, the North Pole down, over the south, back up. Oh. So it's a no-brainer for me. A compass wrecks it.
People... Oh, sorry, go Kev.
Also in Antarctica, we get that stupid little pole that shows everybody that, you know, hey, look, we made it. But what I want to see is you walk up with your compass and the needle's going screwy as you walk all around, and then you step 5 feet away and it goes right, and then you go back over and it's screwy, and we're never going to get that video.
Never. Like a
no, but it's a ceremonial pole as well. They say, oh, the South Pole's sort of over that way, but we've put this one here, just, you know. And even the North Pole as well is apparently a different GPS coordinate to where actually magnetic north is. So they're probably actually sending people to a different location there as well, you know? Like,
well, so magnetic north right now is in Russia.
Oh.
The magnetic North Pole is currently in Russia. They just had to run around America and change the airport runway numbers because apparently our magnetism has changed here, but only at the Tampa airport right now. You can look it up in the news. They had to renumber the Tampa airport because the magnetism changed, because the North Pole moved. My question is, wouldn't you have to do every airport in the whole country?
Nah, just Tampa.
Right.
Crazy.
So, I guess part of the heliocentric, when you look into the heliocentric model, what's all the different motions? We're spinning at the equator at 1,000 miles an hour, right? But we're also supposed to be simultaneously orbiting the sun at 66,000 miles an hour. We're also
that's an elliptical orbit, so it has to like speed up and slow down.
Accelerate and decelerate as well, massively.
Yeah.
Which you would feel.
But aren't we also hurtling through the Milky Way
moving.
galaxy at what 600,000 miles an hour? Isn't it ridiculous?
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people know that there's all these kind of crazy motions.
Yeah, but all they'll say is relative. That's their answer to it.
Oh, everything's moving at the same time, so
relative.
you don't
No, just you don't feel it because it's relative.
Relative.
Because you're talking about miles per hour, but actually on the scale that we're moving at, it doesn't. You know.
Okay.
It would be a series of accelerations in positive and negative scale. You'd essentially be speeding up, slowing down, and changing direction at the same time. It'd be on a giant tilt whirl in the 3D.
Yeah. It'd be like a Michael Jackson Thriller movie. You know, you'd be leaning all sorts of weird ways on the street. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So
it's the people that tell you to stand on a train and throw a ball in the air, and you can catch the ball because it's not affected by the external motion. You kind of feel the external velocity. So I tell them to climb up on top of the roof of the train, and then because the globe doesn't have a roof, it's not contained.
That was kind of exactly the same argument I had. Yeah.
The train isn't accelerating,
isn't it? Yeah.
You know, the train's in uniform motion in one direction, you know, on the y-axis. But if you're on Earth, you're not only going around a central point. That central point is also in motion. That's two complex motions. You'd be getting jerked left and right all day long.
Mark Knight, he did a good representation of it when he was talking to that Dr. Svetlana, the kind of world-renowned astrophysicist, and he had the fairground ride where it's like the wee guy in the middle, and it's going up and down a track, but it's spinning at the same time. And he said, look, if you pick any one of those people, that's your point on Earth. So as you're spinning, you're speeding up, and then you're slowing down, coming back into the curve, then you're speeding up and slowing down. And she said it's because gravity is different everywhere on Earth, and that's why we don't feel it.
Right.
There's always an answer, isn't there? There's always some convoluted reason why you shouldn't just experience things as you think you should. There's always some ridiculous gravity waves and all that sort of nonsense, you know.
I mean, that's the go-to thing. Whatever
Occam's
they say,
razor
gravity
says, you know,
gravity.
The simplest answer is usually the correct one, and then they come up with something that's absolutely so beyond anybody's comprehension. Even people who have been studying it their whole life can't understand it. So they're trying to answer a question which they don't need to answer.
Yeah. You saw that interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson when the interviewer was like, "So what is gravity?" And he was like, "I don't know."
Well, he's registered as an actor, so that's all I need to know about him. I'm not interested in his opinion.
It was interesting when I know many people have argued with, will use the Felix Baumgartner, the
Red Bull space jump,
the jump proof of curvature, where we know that they were using fisheye lens
in conjunction with GoPro or sponsored by GoPro.
Where the whole of Texas was apparently the planet. But even, I don't know if you've actually seen it yourself, but Neil deGrasse Tyson was like, no, like, he was totally calling out that what Red Bull had done. He was saying, no, at that height, everything's flat.
Oh,
It would
yeah.
never. It wouldn't be
It's
curved.
just
It would-
double speak nonsense, isn't it? It's
Aye.
like they can't decide
Yeah.
what they're showing and what they're not. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, will we show curvature today or not?
'Cause outside-
You know, it's like if you, for example, if you watch one of the high altitude balloons that they send up with a fisheye
Yeah.
lens, as soon as it starts flipping back and forward, you get
Yeah.
concave Earth,
Yeah, yeah.
convex Earth,
Yeah,
concave
yeah,
Earth,
yeah.
and it's like, so you ignore the concave and the flat, but you're
Yeah.
only interested in the concave, convex. You know, it's just it's not, if you, as I said, it's so simple that if you just look for 5 minutes, but they don't want to see it. Nobody wants the
I don't know
religion
what is the
dismantled.
highest they have sent one of those balloons of 120,000. They went
Something
higher
like
than
that. We've
They
seen
went higher than
amateur stuff, yeah.
127.
The
127.
best thing about the Felix jump was when they were showing you the curvature on the external camera when
In
he
the
was waiting
outside,
to
yeah.
jump. It showed you the internal camera
It was
and the
completely
horizon
flat.
sitting eye
Yeah.
level, perfectly flat. So it's
Yeah.
like, well, what one is it? They can't be both.
Yeah.
I think we'll all agree that that is one of the major proofs of the flat Earth as well. Because like no matter whether you're ground level or kind of on the top of a mountain or on top of a plane, the horizon always rises to the kind of viewer's eye
Observer's
level. Yeah,
It's because it's an optical illusion.
yeah,
They just converge at the center of
Yeah,
your
yeah.
vision.
yeah.
So again, it's not really a proof of anything.
Yeah.
But you know,
But if
You know,
you
a
want
couple
to,
little side notes on the Felix jump. I don't know if any of you are aware, but the guy who it was only person allowed to talk to him was the previous guy who held the record from back in the 60s who almost died during his jump.
yeah,
And Felix, for 6 months prior to the actual jump, he'd been under the care of a psychiatrist who'd been hypnotizing him because he couldn't make the jump. He wasn't going to do it. They had to put him through tons of hypnosis.
wow.
Yeah,
Terrified
they
about
don't talk
doing it.
publicly about it, though.
I didn't know that. At
I knew
all.
that he was
Did you know that?
terrified about doing it. Yeah,
I mean,
would have been
anybody
as
would.
well. Yeah, absolutely.
It's
That's a
perfectly
normal reaction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we like Roberto was saying when they were showing you footage from inside, kind of looking through the you could see that the horizon was at eye level, wasn't it? So, we know that what they were trying to show us there wasn't kind of a real.
Well, also in that picture they showed us when we saw the ball Earth, it was all Earth. There was no water. Did
Yeah.
all the water go away on the Earth?
Yeah,
Well, that's it. Isn't it?
It was
all
just land.
Yeah,
When they show you an image, you just complete the circle,
yeah.
and you know you've got like Globe, Texas, or whatever. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
like
Right.
It's just it's ludicrous. I've seen an
Texas.
image. I think they put up an image of the UK, and it was like literally a quarter of the size of the globe, and
Yeah.
that was from the International Fake Station.
Well, every time we know ourselves, over the years, they've just shown us kind of different pictures of the globe, and the continents have been
it's
bigger, the
enough,
colours
isn't
have
it?
been different.
Just to keep it in the back of your mind,
Yeah.
like that's why they show you it at the start of every movie as well. Just keeps just keep repeating the same lie over and over.
Yeah, I mean,
And
once
that's
you've kind of,
enough.
I guess once you've woken up, I know personally myself, when you kind of, you just see globes everywhere in like movies and TV adverts and just
they start
TV.
appearing
They're
everywhere.
just
Whereas before
everywhere.
they were subliminal. Now it's
Yeah.
like, oh,
My ex-partner was like just so sick of me. Like every time we went to watch something, it was like globe.
go on, Kev.
My question is how, so Universal Studios, that picture they have of the Earth with the little plane flying around it,
Yeah.
it looks like a globe.
Yeah,
I think they published that in 45. How did they get it so perfect? How they know what it was going to look
Yeah,
like?
before they'd ever seen it.
before anybody been up
Right.
any height. Yeah,
That's amazing, eh?
Yeah,
And why isn't NASA from the ISS showing us what Antarctica looks like with their high-tech external camera?
They're too busy. They're too busy showing floating microphones and gorilla costumes and
Oh, guys, this,
Stop it.
while we're
Conundrum
talking
up
about
quite a lot.
While we're talking about
I
the
bet.
National Fake Station, let's talk about Don Pettit. Like, oh my God. This guy's like a veteran astronaut who's been up there. I believe he's been at the fake station about allegedly 5 times or something. And the guy's an absolute moron. Now, are they just laughing at us?
He's not. He's actually not. I think
Is he
he's
not?
playing 2 parts.
Yeah.
So there's a really good video out there where if you actually look it up, he's got another astronaut on he doesn't know the wording very well.
Yeah.
Don Pettit comes out with some ultra complex words and starts spelling them, and he's doing all this little wordplay. I think he is playing good cop, bad cop.
Yeah.
Smart astronaut, dumb astronaut, just different times.
Kev, did you see that clip? It was Smarter by the Day. What was it? What was the interview he was getting done? But he was like, what happens if you get an air leak? Well, he was like, well, we get a leak.
No, I don't see that one.
No, that one, he was like,
that,
he was
that
in
might
the.
pose a problem.
he was asking the guy in the cupola, part of the space station, like, so what happens if you get a leak? And he was like, well, I'm pretty sure that there'll be some kind of emergency that I don't
Procedure.
that I don't know, and we'll just have a leak. But I guess you,
Yeah, that thing should have been battered by space debris about 1,000 times by now.
But you must have all
it's fine.
seen. You must have all seen the guy going when he's asked, when he says, "Well, I'd go back to the moon in a nanosecond, but that technology's been destroyed, and it's quite hard to build it back."
My dog ate my homework. Sorry, miss.
Just like they
Yeah.
lost all
It's
the
the same
footage.
kind of excuse, isn't it?
Yeah,
But again,
Then
it's,
how did you get to Mars?
yeah.
yeah.
Like I say, I
So
can't.
they-
You can't. Yeah,
It's how
it's
they
just none of it makes
need-
sense.
It's how they need to get outside to fix everything. I mean, I've got a friend, Kevin. He's worked in like the US Navy and submarines like for most of his career, and it's like everything that we need to repair can be repaired from inside the submarine because
Yeah.
it's a high pressure differential, extreme dangerous environment outside the submarine. So why would they build a space station where all the component parts that need to be replaced and tinkered with on the outside of the
Yeah.
thing when they're needing airlocks and exposing it to the vacuum? And I mean, there's none of it makes logistical
Yeah.
sense at all.
Yeah.
I mean,
And they're always constantly, you know that when you see the footage from inside, they're always having to emphasize that the weightlessness, they always have to do every single time, always a forward roll, somersault, and all. If you watch it, they're always like, whatever they've got in their hands, they've always got to be like spinning it around and showing that it's kind of like whatever, the microphone or the Apple or whatever, always constantly. Like we forget that they've been up there 20 how many years. It's just constant. Again, the fourth wall scenario. Well, you're only seeing it from a certain point of view, so it's just over the top. We're in space. We're in space.
I think they're doing it all on purpose. We all know what good wiring looks like. We know what good electricians look like. We know what good plumbing and good plumbers look like, and so do they. To show us this junk and think that the smart ones of us aren't going to catch it it's asinine.
Yeah.
I think this is all about just the show. Just make the show really good. Who cares about the couple smart guys in the corner that figured out?
Yeah.
Nobody likes the guy who spoils the ending. They're just going to boo him out of the theater. Everybody else will be all enthralled. Just run it. Don't worry about the details. They'll eat it up. And they do. And we do.
Somebody made a very clever montage video, and it was like showing you moths and flies and bumblebees on the space station. Space moths. You got Dom Pettit was like trying to swipe at one, and you could see the other guys going like, "Stop,
Don't do that, Don. You haven't been here enough."
He's like this, swiping at it.
Like, stop it, Don.
You know, space moths and space flies and bees and stuff like that. Who was that?
I think they must get bored as well because they're all in on it, right?
Aye.
So they're all like doing stuff like, it's kind of like that thing where you say to your pals, get that word in a conversation of $10.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. They must be messing around because you have all of them.
Yeah.
There's a picture where all of them are floating around. That there's about 8 or 10 of them, and all the fruit sitting in a bowl on the table. Nobody makes that mistake because as soon as you put the camera on, you'll be like, "Can someone move the bowl of not floating fruit, please?" It's just a piss take. They're just having fun.
I just think there's various ways that they do. I think for the long kind of shots, they're using wires and harnesses.
Oh yeah.
And then kind of for the short shots, I think they're using like the vomit comet, that kind of.
Oh, yeah.
They're having a mock up on
It'll be a combination of all
they're
sorts
doing
of
like
stuff.
parabolic dives and having like 30 seconds of weightlessness. Do you know what I mean?
It's
And augmented virtual reality and stuff like that.
Go on, Rob.
Aye. One of the best videos I've seen was a guy, Mike, I can't remember his second name, Mike Helmick, I think it was. But he was a kind of special effects guy. He worked in kind of Hollywood for 20 years. And he kind of went through a couple of sections of our footage and broke it down bit by bit and told you exactly how they were doing it and how they'd fucked it up. But it was like you said there, James, about the augmented VR contact lenses.
Yeah.
And there's there's patents for these things. I mean, I think they're used in the kind of film industry and have been for a few years now. But I mean, what they basically do is it shows the person that's wearing the contact a CGI object so that they can then interact with it in kind of real time. But what happened on the kind of the live feed for the space station was that they forgot to add in one of the layers of video. So you've got the guy, you can see his eyes like watching the things in the contact lenses, but he's moving objects.
Yeah,
obviously he can see them in the lens, but there's nothing there on the live feed. So he's just moving about invisible stuff, and it's like, well, he can see what he's supposed to be playing with, but we can't.
Yeah.
And then just at that, there's a guy zooms along in the back, but you can because the layer of video's missing, you can see the harness and the pulley that he's sliding through the fucking hole.
I've seen that clip. He's grabbing something out there that's not there and putting it away on the shelf or whatever. And it's just there's nothing there. There's nothing there.
I think the kind of showing you on purpose as well. You need to remember kind of who these people are and kind of the kind of history and where they came from. So if you look at the kind of mockery aspect of it, I mean, that's something that they revel in. I mean, they talk about us as being the profane and the fucking stupid, and we're too silly to see what's right in front of our eyes. So, I mean, I think the whole truth in plain sight thing is that they're mocking the masses. It's almost like trolling the general population.
Yeah.
They'll sit in their wee ivory towers and fucking look at them and what they believe. Yeah, it's a big part of the kind of esoteric kind of element to it, if you like.
Yeah.
Cooper's Delight's a big part of it, I do believe.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, they do that with everything. They're doing that. I believe they do that with COVID. The stories that come in and out. It's just hidden in plain. It's just mocking us with all of it, isn't it? So same thing with NASA and the whole infinite space vacuum notion. That's just horse shit. But when we're talking about, when they're teaching us about the heliocentric model, they also teach us about these kind of building blocks. You've got the Big Bang, kind of gravity and evolution, all kind of unprovable theories, but we're taught as fact, right?
Yeah. Well, they call it the law of gravity, don't they?
It's funny that the two main ones there come from Jesuit Catholic priests.
Yeah.
I mean, Copernicus, he wasn't confident in his work, and the kind of Vatican kind of pushed him to publish it. And he wasn't confident to the extent that they published it a year after he died. But if you look at that, you've got the Vatican, which is a Catholic organisation that believe in God. Why would they then push a model that kind of removes God for the situation?
Yeah.
And then you get, like, 500 years later, and you've got George Lemaitre turns up. He was a Jesuit Catholic priest as well. So again, he comes up with this theory that kind of nothing exploded for nothing, and nothing was created, and everything evolved, and it's like your great granny was primordial slime kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
And you think that just takes it a step further and removes creation or intelligent design to the process completely.
Yeah.
So you think, what would be the motive for the Catholic Church to push something that pulls people away from the church? I mean, it just, the whole kind of history of it and it kind of how it became just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. For people who don't know, Copernicus was the guy who came up with the original the idea of the heliocentric model, right? That's who he was, right?
Well, was it not? Did Newton not also say that his theory of gravity was his least satisfactory as well? And yet it was he's still the poster child for it.
Yeah.
You know, the apple hitting him on the head, and he's like basically just, So I mean, it's supposed to be a law, but at the same time, if you look at it, the 9.8 meters per second squared acceleration does not apply to everything. You know what I mean? Like, I'll let a helium balloon go and it goes up. You're saying that there's a downward bias with everything. I've just disproven that immediately with one demonstration.
You need to think about when these characters were actually recorded, or I wouldn't maybe go as far as invented, but if you look at the kind of Tartarian stuff and kind of resets, and you look at the kind of child labour and the stuff that happened, I mean, looking at the kind of age groups they're targeting with vaccines just now, I mean, they came out this week and said they've got to target 5 to 11-year-olds.
Yeah.
So it would seem that kind of toddlers to 5-year-olds are the only ones that are safe just now. And if you've got a child that age, you can basically program them with anything you want. And I think that's what happened before. When you look at the kind of construction in the 1800s, and it was all like trains full of child labour and factories with child labour. And if you look at the kind of marriage and children with wedlock in this time was kind of really frowned upon and immoral. And you think, well, where were all these children's parents then if it was all children and slave labour? So I mean, I don't think this is the first great reset, if you want to use their kind of terminology. So if you look at that, and if you think that history was rewritten at that point, and that explains why we've got all these buildings that we can't explain how they were built, and how did they get there, and Easter Island, and I mean, you've got things all over the whole face of the earth that that just don't make any sense, and we probably couldn't build with the technology we've got today. So you need to wonder, if our history was altered 200-300 years ago, how much of what they're telling you happened 500 years ago is actually true, or is it all just fucking fictitious, made up nonsense?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Just a thought.
No,
Yeah,
absolutely.
you go all over the world and there's like certain things that look like they've been kind of laser cut, like things that we can't, like this ancient civilizations should not have been able to didn't have the tools or equipment to actually do.
They've sold us this idea that they were primitive.
Yeah.
But the things that they've created, we don't know the extent of their abilities. And they just paint them as these primitive beings.
It's funny that one of the things that I've discovered, I've had obviously since I had my main account taken off me, I've kind of tried to add new people to my burner accounts, and a lot of them I've added them because I've seen they were like that they didn't believe in COVID and stuff like that, but they've come onto my Facebook, and then obviously I've been sharing kind of COVID or convid kind of stuff, and then when I've started talking about flat Earth, I'm like, oh, that's
too much. That's
too much. So a kind of thing that
is a step too far.
I think something that we've all probably come across is the whole. I can only speak for myself, but when other truthers who believe in other kind of conspiracies, they'll say that flat Earth is a psyop created by the CIA, or it's to kind of mock all other truthers and other kind of move away from everything else.
You can look at the depictions from all ancient civilizations, and they far preceded the existence of the CIA. That's just absolutely
you look at all these
ridiculous.
like ancient civilizations.
But arguing on the internet's impossible. It literally is. Because some people say something and then go on the internet and Google something and come back with a rebuttal. It's just like, please give me strength.
So you got like ancient civilizations like separated by millennia and vast geography. Yeah. And they all depict, you look at the artistry, they all depict a flat, motionless Earth. Yeah, but the CIA created that.
They're just illustrating how they experience things directly.
Egyptians, Babylonians.
If we were to depict how we experienced reality directly, we would draw something very similar. Because the sky does look like it curves down at the edge. Yeah. That's another optical illusion. So that's why they've depicted it as...
why are we
flat with a dome over the head?
As humans, why are we so willing to kind of just disregard our own senses and kind of what our kind of everyday experience of objective reality? Why are we so somebody put? What's that?
Go on, guys. One of you can take that.
I think that timeline's been kind of fucked a bit as well, though, because I mean, if you look back, there's a newspaper article for I think it's 1901 or 1902. And it was the guy that was the head of the English education department. It was like a Sir something. But there was a big kind of write-up. It was a front page, and he said that he was like potentially facing a prison sentence for heretic globe teachings. And the article, you can still like see a copy of the original article, and it's been stamped by the Historical Society as being authentic. So you think, if that's an article from just the turn of the last century, and they were saying that flat Earth was still being taught in schools and that the globe was nonsense, and this guy was being threatened with prison for trying to teach it, you think, well, that's only just over 100 years ago. But they would lead us to believe that the globe's been universally accepted for 500 years, 2,000 years, if you want to take it back to the Greeks.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. Can we actually believe any history?
No.
Can we believe
it's
anything
a fable
that we've been
agreed upon,
taught?
Isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So that's it.
Yeah,
that's all it is.
Turn it all away.
That's a horrible place to be when you literally.
You can only
can't believe
whatever you can verify now. That's it. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because once you've realised that certain parts of history have been fabricated, where does it stop?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you can only verify what you can. That's it.
We have events going on right today that, unless we're right there to witness it, you don't know who to believe because the two sides are so far apart on what they're saying the truth is.
Well, I sat in Glasgow across from there was I think there was immigrants in a hotel that had been denied their citizenship or whatever. And basically, I actually witnessed them, the victims coming out, and some of them not coming out of the hotel that he had stabbed, basically. And because of the culture now, where we're taught that everything on social on in the media is fake, I had people on my timeline from America telling me that story was fake, you know. And I was like, I was sitting right there, and they were saying, yeah, but it's crisis actors, don't worry about it. I was sitting across the road, I saw people being stretchered out, and I saw people bleeding, you know. It was horrific. But we now, so basically that is their tactic now for hiding the truth. It's like to you know, to avoid anybody being able to discern what the truth actually is, you just flood the information streams with so much nonsense that you literally cannot find what the truth is anymore, and people just automatically assume that, you know, it's fake, you know.
I think another aspect too is the engineered dependency that's going on in this country, and that's where right from birth we're all being forced to rely on the government and the system to make all our needs met. You know, whether it's food or education, our ability to read, you know, transportation, make fire, put fire out, get help when somebody pulls a gun on you, whatever your issue may be. You can't do nothing yourself these days. Call a guy.
Yeah,
and if you're the guy who does it all yourself, you're looked at as some, you know, fringer.
Yeah, we've handed over our control to every aspect. We don't grow food anymore. We don't know how to do anything. But, you know, some of us still do. So, you know, we'll see how everybody gets on.
Definitely. You
know, but that's what they want. They want to build a society completely dependent on the state, you know, with regards to working less, you know, receiving a basic income so you can have more leisure time, and they can dictate exactly what you do. Like, for example, this push towards the electric car, right? So they can determine when you charge your car. If you don't pay your road tax, they can turn your car off. You know, that's not too far from... You know, it's not too far from reality now. When we've got diesel and petrol cars, they can't do that yet, but ultimately that's where it's going. Once you're connected to the grid and you're charging your car at home, they now have ultimate control of where you go. Shut that guy's car down, he's not paid his road tax. End of story.
What's going on with digital currency just now? Cause
that's what I was going to say, yeah.
There's a lot of talk of kind of CBDCs and the Bitcoin and the kind of Bank of England adopting kind of digital currency. But it's already been discussed in Parliament in June of this year that the government have approved that the banks and employers, that when people get their digital currency, the government will be able to set what they deem to be essential purchases or purchases that person's allowed to make. So you're getting into the realms of communist China now. It's like, if I go on Facebook and say something about the government that they don't like, then they'll just say, well, you can't buy fucking anything other than beans and toast in the shops for the next 6 months.
Absolute control over every aspect.
That's been through Parliament. That's been approved. But people, I mean, it's like shouting as a guy behind the curtain, and everybody says we're mentally ill.
I know, that's it. People don't know what's coming. You know, and they think just being a good citizen and doing what they're told is going to win them some sort of favoritism when it comes down to it, but actually we're all going to be in the same situation, you know, unless we choose otherwise now.
Did anybody see Boris Johnson's UN speech?
No, I seen little tiny clips of it.
It was quite interesting. He kind of brought up Kermit the Frog as an analogy, and he was talking about Miss Piggy, but I'm sitting there thinking, are you just taking the piss so the kind of general population that you've had on summer for the past 18 months and you're about to turn the heat up? I think, like, why would you bring Kermit the Frog into a fucking speech that you're delivering to the UN unless you're talking about boiling frogs?
Listen, we have somebody in charge of our country who looks like he's brushed his hair with a hand grenade. You know, the guy's a clown.
It's like a toffee apple.
He's just a clown. He's not in charge of anything.
With a hand grenade. Oh, right. Did you guys see that when he went to the White House here a couple of days ago, and he was sitting there with President Biden, and he says, hey, how about we'll take a few questions from the reporters here? Yeah, let's take a couple questions. And Biden looked over and said, yeah, good luck. And instantly, aides rushed in and pushed all reporters out of the room. That was it.
Really
We're done.
Awkward.
We don't let this guy speak.
They were shouting at them.
I actually shared
ushered them all out.
I shared a funny meme today. It was like, it was a picture of the guy that obviously Boris and hit.
He can't go off script, that guy.
Yeah.
And he's in control of one of the most powerful countries in the world. Apparently.
Did you guys see it though? They were first of all, they were sitting in chairs 2 meters apart with their masks on, and then 2 seconds later they were getting photographs taken with their arms around each other.
It's just like they're just taking the piss out of us constantly.
Just laughing.
People would just go for it, and there's still people scurrying around with their masks on when they've been meeting up at the G7 summit and all these other things like the football games and everything, and nobody's wearing their masks. Royal Ascot, all of them.
Kevin, do you believe that the plan has always been to put what's her name? What's the vice president? Camilla? Is it Camilla?
Camilla Harris.
Do you think the plan has always been to install her?
Yes.
Yeah. Because the guy is senile. He can't string a sentence together.
We're still arguing like they actually have any power. It's just a one layer of theatre.
I think they're a figurehead, but I do think she is the key figurehead that they want to get, because she's going to be the symmetry between Barack Obama and the Hillary that never came, all in the same person.
By the way, I seen that. I still laugh. I watched the clip of Hillary and Trump, and he was like, "Good job he's not in charge." He was like, when she's saying, "Good job he's not in charge of making laws in this country," and he's just like, "Yeah, because you'd be in jail."
Yeah, she was asking about. She was calling him a crook.
Yeah.
You don't pay any taxes. He said, "I'm not a crook. I'm just smart. But if I become president, you're going to go to jail."
It's quite,
and in the end, none of that happened either.
Yeah,
he did nothing.
I mean,
it's quite easy to show that all for the farce it is, though, because I mean, you're talking about like presidents being elected, not elected. They're just taking the public face of entities controlling them from above.
Yeah,
but it's like. We had that deal announced a couple of days ago with Australia, the UK and the US ramping up the kind of war against China. Yeah. And we've got $1 trillion nuclear submarine sitting in the Clyde disintegrating, wasting away. They think, well, we've got to build new submarines in Australia because we've used up all the kind of nuclear subs that we've built already that cost fucking trillions of dollars. But if you look at China, right, they're saying China's our enemy and we need to get ready to go to war with them and build nuclear submarines. All the COVID tests in this country then are made in China. So you've got a population sticking sticks up their noses that are made in the country that you're going to war with. They've just took over the whole of the British steel industry. You've got Huawei with their 5G infrastructure. I mean, China basically fucking owns the UK. Yeah. But yet we're saying, we're having to pump all these billions of pounds into defending ourselves against them. They already own the fucking country. So, but my thoughts are that the guy that's in charge of China isn't in charge of the guy that's in charge of anything isn't in charge. Yeah. I think the people controlling this are entities that we aren't really aware of behind the scenes. And you look kind of the influence that big tech you got, like Zuckerberg and Bezos and Gates. I mean, I think these are the people that are kind of running politicians, and they've got politicians in their back pockets. Yeah. Because, I mean, it's like the Antarctic Treaty again. You look at all the governments, they're all towing the line, they're all following the same script, they're all reading out the same fucking propaganda when they're doing their daily broadcasts. Yeah. That's all coming somewhere. And it's...
Well, we all know that the mainstream media is complicit and they're all owned by kind of the same kind of company. Because have you guys seen that clip somebody put together, and it was like 100 different news anchors from different stations, and they were all literally reading identical, word for word, verbatim, just like
dangerous to our democracy.
Yeah.
Democracy, that's a funny word.
Democracy. Yeah. It's been a long time since any of us lived in a democracy. Right, so
it's never been a democracy here.
So guys,
that's an illusion to pacify the masses. That's what that is.
Absolutely.
My vote counts. I'm just going to vote harder next time.
So guys, I was in the van with a work colleague today, somebody who's never even looked into kind of flat Earth, and I was telling them about the show tonight, and I said to them, what would be your kind of question to me if you're on the show, and I'll put it to you guys. The three things he mentioned was, how do the seasons work on a flat Earth, time zones, and tides.
Okay, so I'll take seasons. Then.
You take seasons.
So that's a presupposition that you're on a globe again.
Yeah.
You're saying how do the seasons work on a flat Earth? It's like, well, the seasons are working now. Yeah. You have to prove the positive claim that you're on a globe first.
Yeah.
So actually, that's the reverse. That's a burden of proof reversal fallacy.
Yeah. If you've got a model that's been taught as
so he's saying, well, I know we're on a globe. You prove to me that it's flat. Yeah. By showing me how the seasons work.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right, cool. Rob, does anyone want to take tides?
I'll take tides. Yep. I asked them to prove that the moon's gravity is pulling the ocean for like 250,000 miles away when it doesn't affect my cup of tea or a swimming pool or kind of any other water that isn't part of the sea.
Yeah.
But you've also got kind of 3 feasible explanations that you can back up with physics. And the first one being, I think, is probably maybe the more plausible, is that we've only dug 7.8 miles into Earth.
Yeah.
We've only explored 5% of the ocean floor. So I think that the ocean could be connected to a filtration system where the water seeps away, then it comes back up, seeps away, comes back up. That gives you a variation in levels.
Yeah.
It also explains why, like, landlocked lochs that are only part of the sea, they don't have tidal patterns because they would be isolated from the filtration system that the kind of main body of water is part of.
Yeah.
You've also got the kind of salt water's diamagnetic, and we live in a demonstrably electromagnetic environment. If you think of the sun and the moon as a diode and a cathode, that you've got your positive and negative charges, that's moving over the water. You can demonstrate with a magnet that it's got a pull, so that would pull on the water, and tidal patterns are linked to phases of the moon, so that's another explanation.
Yeah.
You've also got that you can look at water and it expands and contracts when it's heated and cooled. So if you've got a heat source moving over large bodies of water, you've got large areas of water heating up and cooling down, so you've got expansion and contraction. So that could explain tides as well. But I think all 3 of those are a kind of much more reasonable answer than saying that the moon's pulling at the sea from a quarter of a miles away.
They want us to believe. Obviously, again, they always come up with these fantastical distances. And what was it? With they explain the eclipse that the sun's 400 times larger than the moon, but also magically 400 times further away. That's how they explain it.
And therefore, they appear the same.
Yeah. Again,
I would.
I mean, the mathematical
coincidental.
The mathematical chances of that are like virtually zero. Happening. Like the mathematical possibility of them being 400 times further away and 400 times bigger is just it's an impossible.
So for us, I guess sorry, go Kev.
To add in Roberto with the tides there, why aren't we seeing the tides on all bodies of water? Why is it just, the salty waters?
Yeah.
We've got giant lakes. Lake Ontario, several hundred miles long, several hundred feet deep. Why does it have any tide?
Yeah.
Wow,
that's some
the
lake.
Dead Sea, is that not landlocked as well?
Huh?
The Dead Sea?
It is, but it's actually a salt water and it's super salty.
Yeah, that's what I mean. No, but that's surely another. Why would that not have tides?
I think that actually does have small tides.
Does it?
I think it does, but it would stand to because it is a salt water. Any salt water on this planet has a tide. Anything doesn't have salt water, regardless of its size, it won't have a tide. Right. But the Dead Sea is only 20 miles long. Lake Ontario is 700 miles long.
Rather than,
that's insane.
Rather than gravitation.
Right.
It's electromagnetism, isn't it?
You've got Lake Baikal as well. When it freezes over, I think you should have something like a 30-mile hill or wall of curvature from end to end.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can stand by a camera and zoom from one end out to the other. You get people driving their cars on it and skating on it, and I mean, it's perfectly level. Mm-hmm. So you think if the water's covering, then why are you not seeing the curvature when it freezes over?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I've seen multiple people doing kind of experiments on like one side of a kind of long lake to the other with kind of lasers and kind of having lights at kind of like 12 inches off the floor and being able to see it from kind of like long distances away.
It's not difficult to disprove the curvature.
It's so easy.
It's really straightforward if you actually just take 5 minutes.
But it's just so...
The difficulty we're having isn't disproving the curvature, it's actually getting people who don't believe that the Earth might not be a sphere to even look at it. That's the gateway to pass. Once you actually crack past that, it's easy. It's just that initial barrier that they've got up, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Roberto touched on water, kind of fluid dynamics and the physics of water early on. For me, that is the number one proof that we
fluid dynamics.
Water, just the physics of water.
Well, you can take a hose pipe, 20 miles long, and fill it with water, and if you hold both ends up, the water level will be absolutely, and You know, that's just the way water behaves.
It's just undeniable.
You know?
Water needs to be contained. It takes,
Yeah, I'm yet to see somebody who, putting water on the outside of their cup and drinking it.
People will say
Like
that
just pour it over the top of it upside down, and
people
nobody does
always
that.
accuse us of being like science deniers, but in fact we're just not.
That's just a quick way to get rid of us and shut us down, isn't it? Because I could say to somebody, right, so you're telling me that because of an invisible force called gravity that nobody can actually prove to exist, air sticks to the exterior of a sphere. And I can say, okay, so you're saying that containment is not required for gas pressure.
Yeah.
I'll give you 1,000 examples of butane gas containers, cans of Coke.
Yeah.
I'll give you 1,000 different examples that, a pressure differential needs to be contained. You give me one example of it not requiring containment, and then we'll talk, and you can watch them scramble around and not have an answer for you.
Well, you can't even create a vacuum.
They'll point at the sky and tell you that's a pressurized system existing next to a practically, almost zero pressure or a vacuum.
You told me the other day, I can't remember. Sorry, go.
On that note, though, if we were to go up to 30,000 feet and measure the pressure, would we see a lower pressure than here at the sea level?
Absolutely. That's a pressure gradient, but that's a delta of pressure.
I don't really subscribe to the whole kind of pressure thing and the whole pressure gradient, because kind of globe defenders will use pressure gradient as an argument as to why the molecule can exist at the boundary or the Kármán line. If you look at it, I mean, PSI, right, we've got 14.7 PSI at sea level. That pounds is a measurement of weight. So what the measurement is the weight of the column of air above you. So if you climb Mount Everest, the reading on a barometer gets lower and lower and lower. But it's not the pressure that's getting lower, it's the actual weight of the volume of air. And it's the same when you go deep sea diving. If you go underwater, the deeper you go, the more pressure there is. But it's not pressure, it's just a measurement of weight. There's more mass and volume pushing down from above. So this pressure gradient, I mean, I don't think the air pressure that we talk about is pressure as such, because if you're measuring it in pounds, then it's a measurement of weight. So I think it's just the higher you're saying, there's less weight of
That's a great
mass
way to look at it
from above. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Sure, but
But I mean, you're right, Danny. We still need to address the claims of the model, and they're claiming that there's a vacuum. So I kind of got that high to test.
That's it. Before we even have to argue about it or agree, if you have to have a pressure gradient, you still need to have pressure initially, because pressure gradient is a delta of, gas pressure. So you've got to have pressure first. You know what I mean? And our pressure always requires containment. Yeah. You cannot show it without.
So does a vacuum, right? You can't create a vacuum without containment, right?
Well,
right.
No.
Yeah.
So if you've got infinite space.
Typical examples, if you say to people, if they've got a glass fish tank and they put a sliding separator in it, you get a vacuum pump and depressurize one half, and then pull the slider away. Well, the vacuum stay in one half and the pressurised air stay in the other. It'll just equilibrate. So as soon as you remove the physical barrier or the separation, then you lose the vacuum. And it's the second law of thermodynamics debunks space as a claim.
Yeah.
The high pressure moves to low pressure, and you can't demonstrate otherwise anywhere. The other thing is that nature abhors a vacuum. The vacuums. I commented on Brian Cox's thing that I would really like to have the conversation with Professor Cox, but he'll not get back to me.
I wonder why.
I mean, there was a big fucking thing on the Discovery Channel where he's got the NASA vacuum chamber and he's got the bowling ball and the feather. And stuff. Well, my question to him is, can you show me where on earth a vacuum exists naturally? Because if you're creating an artificial environment, how objects behave in that environment have only got reference and relevance to that environment. It's got no bearing at all on reality that we live in. So we don't live in a vacuum. There are no naturally occurring vacuums. So if that's proof of gravity, well, it's not. I said, look, go and get one of your mates to stand at the top of a 20-storey building and drop the bowling ball and the feather on your head and see which one knocks you the fuck out first in reality, because we don't live in a vacuum chamber.
That's why.
It's all just false equivalence. I mean, it's distraction and fucking look over here, don't look over there.
Yeah. Well, isn't that another one of the sayings? Is nothing exists in a vacuum?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, doesn't the nature of the Earth's existence deny the vacuum?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's why the moon landings and the space station are so important. They're such an important part of the rhetoric because it takes 80% of the population beyond the argument about space being impossible, and they go, well, there's satellites and there's space stations and there's people been on the moon. Satellites. So what are you talking about, you lunatic?
Yeah.
You know, and that's it. That's why it's so important for that narrative to continue. That's why the Elon Musk is, you know, the poster child of, you know, he takes over from NASA now because they've been debunked, and now they've got reversing rockets that land on drone ships that nobody is on. So they can happen out in the middle of nowhere and there's no witness.
I think it's the same as NASA.
But it's for safety.
They don't actually care how terrible, how poor these videos are. You've got. Did any of you guys watch Bezos's rocket, the penis rocket?
Yeah.
Like, oh my god, it was so bad. And then,
but it only looks bad to us through our eyes.
And Virgin Galactic, there's never been. How long has it been? When did he start that company? Like 30 years ago.
Honestly.
Yeah, I thought it was like the 60s or something. Virgin. It was a music company originally, wasn't it?
Virgin Galactic.
Richard Branson.
Did you watch the footage of their so-called space?
It was horrendous. The things he was saying, they're so cliche and cheesy.
It's laughable. They're like intentionally just laughing at us with
doesn't
these
matter.
things,
they don't need to try. It's enough.
Yeah,
it's enough.
Yeah.
Because
I think we all knew we were going to see a bunch of clips that were 30 seconds long, with a jet line in the background.
We're actually helping perpetuate their story. It doesn't matter if it's negative. We share it with more people than they do.
It's true.
It's like there's no such thing as negative publicity. They just like put it out there.
Yeah.
Some people will watch it and then the flat earthers will take it the rest of the way, and we'll share it to 10 times as many as who would have probably watched it anyway, because people will see it and go, oh, shut up, here we go again. You know, that's it.
So somebody, I don't know who it was, one of you guys mentioned the word satellites. Okay, so do we in the flat, I believe, tell me about satellites.
Tell you about it.
It was
I think they're balloon based. I think everything's pretty much balloon based.
But wasn't in the beginning, wasn't some kind of sci-fi writer who theorized them in the first place?
Yes.
He just theorized.
Arthur C. Clarke, was it?
Yep.
Yeah.
1949 or something, 1959, and then within a year we had them. That's Sputnik. 10 years later, I think.
That's impressive.
Yeah. It just makes me laugh. You get obviously Sky TV here, and I think in America is it Direct TV, and people
satellite dishes.
But certainly me as
that's us 3 minutes away from the 2 hour mark, boys.
Oh wow. That Danny, you know yourself, when you're out doing your gas work, being at certain addresses, and you see these satellite dishes in people's gardens on the floor,
pointing down into the ground,
pointing at the.
Well, that's the interesting thing about a satellite dish. It's shaped in such a way that even if you do put a decent angle on it, it still can capture a signal laterally, you know?
Yeah.
So
what I find funny is that Dish TV, so when they give you that whole package and they send it through the UPS guy, these people have it for the 6-month package and then they just don't pay the bill no more. And do you think these people come get that high-end satellite dish off the house? No, they just leave it. So everybody's got them all over their houses, all over this whole country. There's 4 or 5 on every house everywhere. And you'd think somebody would grab one and figure out how to hack it and communicate with a satellite by now and take one out.
I'm yet to see any that point directly up. There must be some in the UK that point up. You know, but
I mean,
where are these?
So the story goes that they're pointing at little aluminium boxes hundreds and hundreds of miles away, traveling 17,000 miles an hour through a radiation-filled vacuum, receiving signals from outer space.
It seems like an awfully difficult way to transmit. I'm sure I watched something where they were talking about line of sight transmission between 2 towers in the UK.
Yeah.
That they used to do that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it became satellite dishes, and you know, and I've heard satellite installers as well who have become flat earthers who have talked about it and said we're not aiming at anything of the such.
Yeah.
You know, it's aiming at a fixed position on land. You know.
Yeah. Tower base.
Are people really that dumb though that they think that it's a satellite orbiting the globe, but they don't lose a signal when they're sitting in Scotland and there's satellite TV satellites hovering over Hawaii or Australia?
Roberto, here's a question for you. Do you think that the engineers who install them, actually believe that narrative? Or?
That's what I was telling you about them. That's there are some of them who don't believe it anymore because they're aiming them at a fixed position.
Yeah.
On the land.
Yeah.
You know? So You know, some of them do, some of
I
them
used
don't.
to-
It's the same.
I used to do cell tower work, and we used to have to do tower to tower line of sight with the microwave dishes, where we had to. That was the hardest part, was actually getting that thing beamed perfectly straight from dish to dish, because it's got to be dead on.
Yeah.
And we'd have to have a guy on the second pole 10 miles away, and he would tie into that dish, and he'd have a meter, and he's watching for the signal, and we're walkie-talkieing back and forth, and this sometimes would take hours to get it perfect. And how these dishes can be anywhere, pointing anywhere. That's lunacy.
It's just such a scam, isn't
Yeah,
it?
because 1 millimeter or 1 degree
Yeah.
of deviation can end up being hundreds of miles out. It's almost
Absolutely.
impossible to get the accuracy.
It's funny because in one hand they're showing you these graphics of like what looks like what they're trying to show you how many satellites like it looks like a swarm around the globe.
Yeah.
But every time you see any footage from NASA, a space station,
The thing is, as well, that was like you
nothing.
get one hits into another one, and then you just get a chain reaction
Yeah.
where they eventually create so much space
But wouldn't
debris
you be
that
able to,
they
like,
would just destroy all of them within.
but wouldn't you on a
hours.
bright night be able to just put your
Stupid.
P1000 out and just look at the moon and see them just
Yeah, but I mean,
traversing the
people
moon?
will say
like,
that they've seen the space station transiting over. You know, and what is that? A high altitude airplane
most likely.
or a high altitude drone or something? Because people do see it.
There's definitely stuff up there. Have you guys
I've
ever
seen-
seen Crow?
Yeah,
seen
Crow
Crow,
777.
777?
Yeah, Crow 777.
He's catching stuff.
I've seen
transiting
those
the moon.
things,
Now,
yeah.
what it is,
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah,
Mhm.
those are.
But there is stuff up there.
I found those videos very interesting. Actually, they were like just these black dots kind of traversing the moon and stuff. But
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys are aware of a channel called FPV Angel or
No,
APM Research.
no.
It's Sandra P900. Do you know Sandra P900 Coolpix channel on YouTube?
Okay.
She's involved, but they did a bit of work with Santos Bonacci as well. And there's kind of like 2 or 3 guys that kind of regularly contribute. But do you know how you get the sundogs?
Yeah, yeah.
You see them in the kind of more in kind of colder climates. You get them a lot with snow. But you get the kind of halos round about the sun, but you get the nodes. What they were saying was they'd kind of looked at the Crow 77 video and they'd found another couple of examples. And what they think is it's like a halo, that it's not a holographic wave. It's actually the moon is passing through like one of these halos. And you can only see it when the moon is like kind of behind it. And they reckon there's loads of these kind of, it's almost like gates.
Yeah.
The sun and then pass through, and the video that he kind of produced, they were kind of highlighting kind of one of these rings, or that you get the nodes run about the sun with the sundogs.
Yeah.
They said it's basically the same kind of principle. But for me, the satellites, I mean, I think as technology advances, they give the game away quite a lot. And if you look at Google Lynn and the kind of project that they had for providing internet to areas of Africa.
Yeah.
If you compare that to Starlink, it's basically exactly the same thing, but Elon Musk get brighter lights on his fucking boxes.
Yeah.
And then you've got a lot more incidences these days as well of these like Samsung satellites crashing into people's back gardens with the solar panels in it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking something maybe the size of a kitchen table, but it's still got the high altitude balloon attached to it. So, I mean, I think they use them for weather and kind of maybe other kind of strategic things, but there's a couple of, I mean, the military kind of debunks it as well, because if you look at a B-2 bomber or an SR-71, the B-2 bomber, the engines are mounted on the top of the wings to avoid detection from heat signals from below. So if you've got 17,000 satellites above a B-2 bomber in a cold environment at 2,000 feet, it's got to light up the heat signature like a fucking Christmas tree.
Yeah.
So to me, that tells me that there's nothing above a B-2 bomber looking down on it.
Yeah.
So I think when they're sending up these stealth planes, that there's nothing above them to detect them, and that's why the engines are mounted on the top of the wings so that it conceals the heat signature, because everything that would be looking to detect it is looking up at it from below. They don't have anything above to detect it. There's a lot of military tech. I mean, you look at railguns and like kind of line of sight targeting and stuff. I mean, a lot of military technology and the weapon systems that they use that destroys the globe. I mean, I've spoke to guys that used to work on like warships and submarines, and they say they're targeting things at like 200-300 miles away, line of sight.
Yeah. Right, listen, guys.
And shoot it line of sight.
Oh, sorry. Go, Kev.
And shoot it line of sight at 300 miles. The bullet still goes line of sight too.
Yeah.
The laser target it. The bullet's still, it's the same trajectory. I mean, you talk to people that have fired weapons. I mean, there's a guy, Miguel, he was a kind of like weapons expert in the US Marines. And he kind of came out and did a few videos about Coriolis, and I mean, he completely wrecked it. He says like nobody calculates for it at all. Then you've got Neil deGrasse Tyson saying it's affecting like football field goals. Well, that goal went in because the earth rotated a certain amount. I mean, it's
They try to tell you so like such snipers take into account the Coriolis effect.
Yeah, the calculation would take you half an hour.
Yeah.
Your target would be gone.
Then you've got SR-71 that's travelling twice the speed of a bullet, and they're not taking any calculations for Coriolis effects. So you kind of have it both ways. I mean, if you're doing it for the bullet, then you have to do it for the plane that's travelling twice as fast as a bullet.
Yeah. But listen, guys. Obviously, this is a subject we could talk for hours and hours and hours. But we're actually over the 2-hour mark now. We're definitely going to have to continue this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, because there's just so much, so much.
Back again, that was brilliant.
Guys, thank you so much for being on. Kev, for the kind of last second, appreciate you coming on, my friend. Thank you. Roberto, thanks again. I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure to actually just talk to you properly, really.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And Danny, obviously.
I'm just like part of the furniture
Obviously
now.
Part of the furniture. Right, guys, well, I hope you've enjoyed our Flat Earth special. This has been the LOFT project. Hope you enjoyed it. Remember, the truth fears no investigation. See you next time.